There's a lot of question about this shift in me, right? This, as I call it, me returning home. And you're in my home. Welcome to my home. I actually hope, like with every episode, I hope you guys feel like you're right here with me and Keira on the couch. And I hope you feel like you're a part of the conversation. I want you to be a part of the conversation. I don't know where we're going to send people to comment, but be a part of this conversation. But there has been a shift in me, and you guys have asked a lot about it. You've mentioned it, and more than anything, I've felt it. Like it's something I'm super passionate about because it has, I don't want to say allowed me, but I have made I don't know if it's a conscious choice or a subconscious choice, but to get out of my head and more into my heart. Now that doesn't mean that I don't gravitate toward my head, because there's 41 years of wiring. I'm going to say 40 and a half years of wiring that have had me believing that I can control things with my mind. Right. I think we all think we forget surrender doesn't really make sense until you experience it. And you can choose surrender, or God and the universe, or whoever you pray to, whatever you believe in. I honor and respect that. I believe in God. I also believe that God created the universe. So I'm going to use all of them. I think the universe is alive for God, right? I think we are all parts of God. I think we all have God in us, right? Because he created us, he or she or it, whatever you want to think.
All right, let's come on back.
7 disclaimers right there.
So
I'm in my head again because I'm worried about what people are going to say.
Shift.
But
the shift. And you've had so many people asking you, how are you doing?
So this, for me, what I was going to say, because this leads into how I'm doing, is my life changed for me. Right? So I think we all have times where we are presented the opportunity, but I think not sometimes, the universe will, there was a really beautiful quote, and I'm going to say it and get it wrong, but the universe will continue to remove things from your life that you place your value in until you realize it's not there. And there are so many things that were a part of my life that I placed my value in, or I believed my worthiness existed inside of. And this predates Dave's passing. And this isn't an episode about Dave passing, but I love that man. I always will. I'm going to say that right now. But it predates this, and it goes into 2022. And Dave was actually a very supportive and loving part of me experiencing this. But that there were so many elements, from my businesses to me as an educator. I guess that's me and my business, but the feedback I would get from women whose lives were changed, right? My house, my finances, right? It's like we all can make a list of 50 things. My friends and connections, right? That sometimes weren't just friend connections, but they were business connections. We all have things that we place our value in. And that quote really hit me because in 2022, God began to slowly remove things from my life that I placed my value in, or that I thought my worthiness existed because of. Until I realized today and these past few months, it's not there. Like, I am so clear today. So how am I? It's been the wildest year of my life. 2022 was I have said I've never had, in 40 years, I would say I've never had a bad year. People would be like, I hate 2020. I want it to go away. I can't wait. And I would sit there and be like, I've never had a bad year.
And you've had hard things.
I've had hard things.
So that's what's interesting is you've had hard things.
Yes,
but
dad's death, divorce. I mean, a lot of things.
Yeah.
However, my ability to find the silver lining or find the beauty in the beast, as I used to say, like I would be, it's just, God blessed me with a positive demeanor. He like, that is my greatest gift from him. I am naturally optimistic, and 2022 knocked me on my butt, like in a major way. To we'll kind of go back in time in a minute, but so to be in a place now where I feel after a hellish 12 months, 18 months, 12, I feel more, I know my value. That's what it is. I know. And my value is not based on any clothes that I can wear. I really do think my outfit's cute.
I know. I'm getting these pants.
They're inexpensive.
It's so beautiful. Okay. Here's what I hear you saying. Is that you had been putting your value, as we all do. And like, okay, is it in business? Is it in finance? Is it in my house? In the relationships? And just now what I heard you say was that you finally found your value, and it was in you.
It is in me. And one of the things I've been saying over the past few months too is, and maybe even 5-6 months, just for a timestamp, Dave died 3.5 months ago. And I think it's important to say right now. So when I say 5 months ago, because people are like, oh, was it that? I had already had these realizations prior to, and that was Dave passing was, as I say, the nail in the coffin of my old life. Like I already knew, I'm like, it needs to go to rest. And I was already headed there. But I was having a hard time doing it. I believe I have felt, and maybe I should dig into the past a little bit, but I have felt that, I access God through me. And this is a new thing. And when I say new, like, 5 months ago, December 2022 is when I started finding God. November. But I access God through me. And this is why I'm so big on cold plunges and this soul work, because when I'm present in my body and I'm focused on my breathing, it's like a channel opens up. I don't know how to explain it, but a channel opens up. Is this what? And I like, it's almost like I am the light, right? And I actually believe that that's how God speaks to me. And when I say God speaks to me, sometimes I'm like, he is in me, right? And he is in you, and he's in you, and you, and you. So that's where my value is. And it's transformed. I mean, this is part of 2022 that we'll go into, but it has transformed how I care. What anybody thinks or don't care, what anybody thinks besides me. And when I say me and God, I mean, of course I never want to hurt, but I'm not one to hurt anyone anyway. And I know that about me. So it's not like I understand if I unintentionally hurt somebody else, there might be something to clean up and I'll figure that out. But like, I care what God thinks and I care what I think.
It's beautiful. It's like my favorite author, Florence Scovel, she talks about the law of non-resistance. And
is that like surrender?
And what it is like there's no Velcro on your body. So the law of non-resistance is that nothing can actually attach. So what anyone says about you, like nothing can now attach to you because you're so deeply strong here and here. That is the law of non-resistance.
I love that.
I know.
And why I love it, and I think I'm going to drop this and save this for a future episode, but because the idea that for me, worthiness came from what a man said. And my value, am I enough to be in this relationship?
Like, I hate that phrase.
Right? And you know what I'm saying?
That's so deep.
And so the idea that when you say no Velcro,
right?
Like I'm feeling this for the first time in my life, like no Velcro. Like I don't need a man. I don't want a man right now. I will want one at some point, and it will be beautiful. And whatever you said, the no Velcro.
The no Velcro.
I love that.
I know. And I feel that in you.
Do you?
I do. I feel it
in me. I wonder if we should because I kind of talked a little bit about the last year.
Yeah.
And I think it might be good for people to understand what the last year was like.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It does feel like that. I mean, that was not in our notes, but
yeah,
I don't follow notes. So this feels right.
Here we are. Here we are not following notes. Only because it's like to understand why me arriving here in my home, my body, I'm reading this amazing book called Becoming the One. And she refers to home as your body. And that's been a consistent theme that people have said to me over the last year or two, which is crazy. Before I even understood or got here, they said, it's not about always becoming. And I've taught women, it's like we all do, right? So we all focus on, and we do these personal development things where it's like, become the person you've always wanted to be. Like become. No, someone shifted my mindset and said, it's not about becoming anything. It's about returning home to who you've always been. And Keira, this is part of why some of my reconnections from the past, which you know about, people who I've known for 30 years, it's the most beautiful thing that these reconnections actually began to happen serendipitously or by God.
Well, I mean, even us
before
back
Dave
together
passed,
happened in 2022.
And it gave me, but I had to create a clearing from the old. It gave me the support and the being held that I needed to make it through what was so hard. So 2022, the worst year of my life. I'm just going to
What happened? What happened in 2022? Because actually, I told you, I don't know. These are the things we haven't actually talked about. And
that's were a sign of a great friend. We can disappear for years and then love each other.
I know. And yesterday I was like, I want to know about your anxiety attacks. I want to know what happened last year. And you said, let's do it on the podcast. So this is like fresh for me.
Oh, that's right. You've never heard.
And that way I get to really ask you questions of like truth. Like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah. So Heidi pre-anxiety and panic attacks was the Heidi that I think the world knows me as. And I'm going to name that Heidi. Yeah. Heidi Powell.
Yeah.
Because that's who she was.
Yep.
And she does not exist anymore. Right. And I mean, I'm here, but it was me. Yeah. Right. With layers and layers of filters and identities and roles. And as much as I felt like I was authentic, I was as authentic and real as I knew how to be.
Yeah. But I've never known you to be a fake person.
Yeah.
Thank you. None of this was fake.
None of it was fake.
It was like a muscle.
It was like,
it was not fake.
It was, no, it was, I thought that's what was important. Right. So it was like, okay, providing for and when I say money and finances, I don't mean I was like, I'm going to be the richest woman in the world. No, I provide for my kids. Yeah. Bottom line, end of story. I mean, I have help, like Chris is amazing. And obviously he and I split, but like in my home, I provide for these kids and I never have not, even when there was a man in my life. I know. I have never accepted anything from a man.
I know.
But yeah, so it was the me that felt like I needed to carry the weight. This was pre-God. Okay. This was before I understood the idea of being equally yoked with somebody who's not a man on this earth, but is God and Jesus. Right. Like I thought I had to carry the entire load myself. So I was, and I'm going to be really careful with this, what I'm about to say. Because I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. And you can if you want to. But I realize now I had a little bit of maybe I got to be careful here, but a God complex. Not in that I thought I was God. Yeah. But in that I didn't even know that somebody could be there to carry the weight with me. Yeah. Because I was disconnected from God. I was disconnected from church and religion. Not that I think you need church or religion, right? Yeah. I was disconnected from source and spirit and Mother Nature. I was disconnected. And it created this cycle of it wasn't greed. It was fear.
Totally.
It was this cycle of fear. Like I need to be able to provide for my kids. I'm just going to work hard so I can make the money. And then I'm going to pull back. Cause you've known me as long as you've known me. I've said, I'm a mom. I want to be with my kids. I don't want to do all this, but having to carry the weight in a home of being the mother and the father, which is the nurturer and the provider and the protector. It's like, it is single moms out there. You feel it. And I'm even going to include single dads, because you provide, you protect, and you also have to nurture and love. And it's a heavy burden. And so that dictated and guided this fear of what if I can't provide? What if and if I can't provide or I can't be, okay, am I enough? What are people going to think of me if I am not using my talents and my gifts? Because I know I have talents and gifts. Like, what would they think if I didn't have a lot, or I didn't? Because they're going to be like, hi, I have this idea that people always look at me and say, she's so successful. Yeah. Okay. So what does it mean about me if I have to go back into my home and with my kids? And so there was ego there too. Yeah. And so this cycle was perpetuating over and over and over. And it was like the faster I would have to run faster. Right. And the more I built, the more it drained me, and the more it drained me, I felt like the more I had to build. And then the more I built, the more it drained me. So it was this like, the more I had, the less I actually had. Yeah. And so go into 2022, January 2022, I had started these challenges, which, man, if anyone listening was a part of these challenges, I did 5 for over a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And Keira, they were magic. Yeah. The women and the men, but it was predominantly women, and the transformation that happened on a heart level. Like, the women I saw learn to love who they were. So I don't regret any of it. I'm so glad I did as many as I did, even though there was an energetic conflict for me at a point. But I had started those. Dave gave me kind of the belief in myself to start these, and I did. And in 2022, the beginning of 2022, when I was deep into these with Dave kind of as my co-partner, he had some public struggles. And that was really hard for me, because he and I were very closely connected in business and a partnership. Man, I had a relationship that I publicly put online, which I'll never do that again. Yeah. And so the emotional stress and the stress just in general of business and carrying the weight and being a mom at a time where these challenges were getting big. Yeah. And I was running my first full event. I mean, so all of these firsts for me, and I felt like I was carrying this, and I kept saying, I'm done. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. Yet I kept going. Yeah. And there was a call in me that was like, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. My mom would call me crying, and she would just say, my best friend, Jackie, would call me and say, Heidi, you can't keep up this pace forever. And my response was, but I have to. Yeah. So Keira, when I saw you yesterday, cry and say, I'm exhausted. For anyone listening, we went to a place called Reconnect yesterday, which is a healing center with cold plunge, infrared sauna, breath work. And I don't know if you want to share.
My marriage of 20 years ended in September of 2022. I have 5 kids. And so, I've run business. I own a publishing house, and I help authors, and I love what I do, like, more than anything in the world. But like, the responsibility and emotionally be there for them and be the husband and the wife, like the father and the mother, and to do it while building business. I know, Keira. And they've had struggles, obviously, right? Their parents just went through a divorce. So then it's also like managing their struggles and doing my own trauma work, because I am really dedicated to healing. And I've traveled nonstop for the last 3 weeks building business, and I broke last night. a reconnect.
I think you cracked in a way that's letting the light in, right? I think sometimes we see breakdowns as weakness, and it was
a crack.
The crack that allowed healing to make its way in.
And what I really heard, which is so interesting because this is everything you're talking about, is, you know, they put me in the compressor like on my heart and my legs, so I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And the second I was there, I felt my heart go.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't be in a place that I can't control.
Yeah.
This is the scariest place I've ever been. And what all the processing I did, I came down to, I don't even let God carry me, which is weird because I work with God.
We're talking about
all
this
day.
What? Yes.
All day long I work with God. I'm a medium. I channel all day.
Do you realize that is like a sense of, it's kind of like God complex, right? So we want to say we believe and we want them, but like we don't want to hand over. We don't trust enough to hand the reins over to him.
Right. Right. And so yesterday, as I've got snot just rolling down my face, it's fine. Yesterday,
it's real,
as I
unedited, remember?
As I was sitting in the cold plunge and she's got her hand on my heart, which, like, if we could rewind just really quick, 2 weeks ago, I got carpal tunnel. And like, I asked my angels, because I work with them all day, I'm like, what does this mean? And they were like, your heart's blocked. Like, okay. I went to my chiropractor like 5 days later and I was like, I don't know about this carpal tunnel. He's like, your heart's blocked.
I remember you saying you felt your heart crack.
I was like, oh, my heart just cracked. And I was like,
I'm like, how do you crack your heart? Your back?
It's coming. It's coming.
Oh.
And then last night it was like in the cold plunge where I was like, God, I'm done carrying it all. Like, just take it all. I'm not going to carry this anymore. So you saying this is like, that's what happened last night for me.
I love that. And it was actually a really beautiful thing to experience. I was in my own zone next to you. We were in compression. I had the beanbag thing on my eyes and I started crying because you were crying.
So hard.
And it was beautiful to hear Jeremy, who owns the place and is also a master breathwork instructor.
Yeah.
It was beautiful to hear him coach you through and support you in a way that didn't take it from you.
I know.
But in a way that empowered you. And I think that's really important for us to identify, is when we're feeling our pain and our struggle and our stress, we automatically think, I want someone to take this from me. I want someone to... When really all we need is someone to believe and empower and love us through it and let us know that we can do it. It's your necklace. It's my necklace. Everything I need is within me. And what is within us? We talked about it.
Yeah.
God. Yes. And so and your crack, but real quick, I was crying.
Yeah.
Because it was beautiful. And so I had my own totally different experience in that moment where I was hearing pain.
Yeah.
Be released.
Yeah.
I was hearing
it was.
And then I was hearing another soul like almost sing to you. He wasn't really singing, but it felt like that to me. It was harmonious. It was like he was like singing you through, hey, this is okay.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
I know.
And to be reminded that our ugliest is actually beautiful, I think is what we need to hear.
It is. Okay. I'm this is so unlike me to pull out notes, but I'm going to read something that you wrote.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. I wrote it down. Okay. You said self-acceptance is accepting all of the dark and the light, the good and the bad, making peace with it, and finally allowing others to see and love us for who we are.
I wrote that?
Yeah, I got that from your Instagram.
This is what's crazy. So let me just tell you, when you talk about channeling, I don't even know what that is, right? I hear you. And so I'm kind of learning. I'm not that evolved yet. But what I do believe is I believe that anything that I ever say, and I felt this even before I let God take my load, anything I ever say that makes impact is not me speaking.
100%.
It's when I get out of my head and I open up my heart and I just speak and go with it. I truly believe that we all are here as mouthpieces for God's messages or other people's messages to be shared.
Yeah.
And so there are times that's one of them.
Yeah.
Because this was just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But I'll watch videos and be like, I said that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know that. I don't even know it.
I know.
But my heart knew it at the moment or felt it and felt like it needed to share it.
Well, and
I love that. I'm like, that's amazing. Thank you for reminding me.
Well, like a channel is like, it's just a river. Yeah. Right. So you're just opening up saying, all right, God, like I'll be a vessel. Just work through me. That's just all channeling is. So you channel all day long. Wow. You just don't call it that. Right.
Yeah.
So like that message was like, when I was looking through your stories, like, that's a message we talk about.
Can we read it again?
Yeah. Self-acceptance is accepting all of the dark and the light, the good and the bad, making peace with it, and finally allowing others to see and love us for who we are.
Nobody else, though, can ever see and love us for who we are until we choose to see and love us for all of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the crack that I saw in you, and why it was so beautiful and magical to me is because I truly believe I was witnessing you preventing a panic attack in the future that lands you in the hospital. That's what I was witnessing. Because for me, so I halfway through the year in 2022, to kind of go back into time, we talked about how I did an event in April that literally, it was a beautiful and so hard.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of how I was as a mom, and I wasn't mean or I wasn't yelling. Even worse, I wasn't present mentally. Like I would be there with them, but I wasn't mentally there. My mind was on the things that I felt like I had to do. Yeah. Right. Instead of the things where I knew God wanted me to be. Yeah. Like the things I had to do for me and my business. And that created a lot of stress and anxiety in me. And then I remember in June, I never let myself break. So when you broke, it was awesome. I never let myself break. I am a pretty tough person, and it's become an identity that I have to peel away. Yeah. I remember Dave would try and get me to slow down. And that was actually what was so beautiful about him, is he always was like, you can't do it. And so he would jump in to help, to try and lift the load. And I just, as someone would lift a load, I'd fill that load. The bandwidth that would open, I'd be like, okay, now let's do this. And he'd be like, let me take that from you. Okay, now let's do this. Yeah. Like, it was just like, it was a hamster wheel. I was digging a hole in the sand and the water just kept coming up to fill it. And in June, I was like, I can't go on. Yeah. I was just miserable in June. And I remember Dave had asked me a question because I thought it was about business. I thought I was miserable about business. Yeah. And David said, well, okay, with your business, because I was so business centric, where do you want it to be in 10 years? Where do you want, like you need to cast a vision. Dave would always say, cast a vision.
I love those words.
He would. Cast a vision.
Like a net.
And I was like, I can't cast any vision. And he was just like, what you need to envision, where like, it's really impossible, Heidi, for us to build when we don't know where you want to go. And he was right. Cause we were just, there was just momentum. Yeah. Like it just created itself. That's the story of my life. Everything just
the hurricane.
Itself. The hurricane just, there's never a plan.
I love it.
It creates itself. And I'm like, well, shoot, we got to create a plan now. Yeah. And so it was creating itself. And he's like, we need to figure out, like, what does the end in mind look like? What does 10 years from now look like? Yeah. And I actually stopped him. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't care about what my business looks like in 10 years. I care about what my life looks like in 10 years. Why am I even thinking about business? Because there was just so much sadness and emptiness. There was a void, and I had more and nothing at the same time. Nothing. I mean, I had everything and nothing, right? Yeah. And so I took some time. And I actually was like, what does 10 years from now look like?
Yeah.
Dave and I were apart at the time. We broke up a lot in 2022. And that was another part of the stress, right?
Yeah.
And my vision was so clear. I remember that night when I went to go think about it, went to go feel it.
Yeah.
And my vision in 10 years. And I'm like, hey, all the parts, God, whoever, show me all the parts. Heidi, show me all the parts. And business had no place in my picture in 10 years. None. And I'm not saying
that's crazy.
I'm not going to have a business in 10 years, but what that told me is that everything I was currently working on that I thought was so important had absolutely zero importance in the picture in my head in 10 years. The picture in my head was me in a home that is not this home.
Yeah.
And it might be, but it wasn't in the vision.
Yeah.
It was me in a home with grown kids and their grandkids, like their kids.
Yeah.
Coming to visit me.
Yeah.
And I still remember like the warmth of the light and everything associated with that.
Yeah.
And so that was okay, that clearly is the most important thing to me because it's what shows up when I think about what I want my life to be like. And then I ask myself the question, am I making choices today that are in line with the vision of where I want to go? And that was a gut punch for me because I knew that I wasn't. I knew I wasn't in business, right? Because I was building this vision or whatever, this empire.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't in relationship because of the distance with me and Dave and a handful of other factors. He and I knew there wasn't long-term potential, yet we continued to hold on.
Yeah.
And so I had a really great conversation with Dave about that. And we both had kind of gotten on the bandwagon of, okay, maybe it's time for both of us now to chase after what we know is meant for us.
Yeah.
And we started down that path. I started to say, I'm going to scale down business, and I couldn't do it. I got drawn back because of fear, right?
Yeah.
So fear brought me back to not just the same business, but more business. Fear brought me and Dave back together because who am I if I'm not, all of these things? And, then in July, after a couple, like me trying and then being pulled back, it's like that quote came to pass again. The universe will continue to remove from your life the things that you place your value in until you realize it's not there. I had one night in a hotel where I thought I was dying. And I was actually having a panic attack.
Where were you at?
Dave and I were in Vegas.
Okay.
And I already wasn't feeling well. I have Epstein-Barr. And Dave was trying to get me to relax. And I was like, I can't relax. I was still connected to business. And he was like, come on, let's just have fun. You need to get out of your business. And you said you want more space. And I was fighting that. And I was working almost the entire time.
Yeah.
And then there was guilt because Dave was there wanting me to relax. There was guilt because my kids were at home. They were with their dads. It wasn't my week, but still there's guilt. And then there was guilt and pressure because of everything I had to do for work. And I still couldn't see a clear future. And I'm like, I got to build more. Like my mind was everywhere, but where it was supposed to be. And I remember laying in bed.
Yeah.
And my heart had a palpitation. And then that threw me into it like a spin.
Yeah.
Because I thought I had some heart things a few years back.
Yeah.
And I never tied a bow on it. So then I'm like, I'm having a heart attack. And so that started me like freaking out as I was laying there. Then I started breathing. The fear started creeping in. And then, before I knew it, I was hyperventilating.
Yeah.
My heart rate was like, I think 150 beats per minute. Wow. It was crazy.
Yeah.
My world started going black. My hands started caving in, like doing this. So anyone who's had an anxiety attack or a panic attack knows. I did not know it was panic. I actually thought I was dying.
Yeah.
I thought it was a heart issue that I never wrapped up.
Yeah.
And that thought just kept going. And I'm like, I can't believe what an idiot. I didn't ever figure that out. I had Dave call the paramedics or whatever. They came up, hooked me up to vitals. They're like, you're fine. You're just having a panic attack. And I was like, actually blacking out. And I was convinced that they had it wrong because I'm like, they didn't do an EKG. They didn't look at my heart. What if I have a clot? I mean, because I never experienced anything like it before. So I ended up not sleeping at all that night. And the second in the morning, Dave Drew opened the blinds and I saw daylight. I freaked out again because I thought I was dying.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to die without my kids. And that was terrifying because all I had that entire night of no sleep were regrets because I actually thought I was dying.
Yeah.
I had regrets of how present I was not emotionally and mentally for my kids. That's all that I had. I had no regrets of anything in business.
Yeah.
And so blinds open, I'm like, holy crap. A day is here in a life that I don't love. Another day. I don't know how I'm going to handle it. I ended up having another panic attack that then we took me to the hospital because I'm like, I'm telling you, it's not panic.
Yeah.
It's more.
Yeah.
And I remember them checking me in and I was just hyperventilating, crying, sobbing in the waiting room.
Yeah.
And she said, "What's your profession?" And it just was like broke down because it was tied to a role that I had that I thought I had value in that really was controlling me instead of me controlling it. So the panic attack was a lot.
Yeah.
And it was I spent a whole week after I went home. I spent an entire week. They had to heavily sedate me in the hospital.
Wow, a whole week,
Keira. I don't take sick days.
No, I don't think I've ever known you to be sick.
I don't back out of things. And I spent a week. I have more business going on than ever. I have teams creating for me. I think I was in the middle of a challenge. I don't know, but it was a whole whatever. And I couldn't get on one single team call. I actually said, can't do one.
Wow.
I tried on like a Wednesday to get on a call and I lasted 5 seconds because when I heard other people's voices, I started sobbing and I had to hang up right away because life in that moment was too painful for me to be in.
Yeah.
And so I stayed upstairs in my bedroom.
Yeah.
The blinds were drawn for just about a week.
Wow.
And occasionally I would stand up and say, I know I need light, but I have never in my life experienced depression ever.
Yeah.
I've never experienced it.
Yeah.
Or anxiety.
Yeah.
Especially at that level. It was debilitating. And I was so embarrassed about it. I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I didn't want anyone to know because I was like, here I am. Teaching women and guiding them how to live a life that they love. And holy shit, I don't even like my life. Like, I didn't even know that I didn't like it.
No.
But it was me not cracking, not letting myself break, not letting myself cry to where God was like, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, right now I'm going to put you in timeout for a full week until you can realize what's actually happening in your life. You're living a life that's not for you. Or maybe you're living a life for you instead of for me, I think is what he was saying.
Whoa.
Right. And that was a wake up call for me. And I spent the next, I put on a happy face, and I'll be honest about that. It was just a happy face from August until end of September.
Yeah.
And I grit and bore through everything. And I was actually miserable.
Yeah.
Like someone who always found joy in everything in life, like I do today.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was gone forever. I remember being like, this must be a midlife crisis. Maybe this is what they're talking about when life is downhill after a certain age. Yeah. I think I just hit it and I'm downhill. Life will never. I had a conversation with my friend Whitney Jones where I said, I don't think it's ever going to be good again. Cause you know, when you're sick, you feel like you're never going to be better.
Yeah.
And even Ruby, I've posted a million times on Insta that Ruby is my natural antidepressant.
Yeah.
And she has been forever. And I couldn't even find joy in my kids.
Yeah.
There was not one thing. It was like, I was not on any anti-anxiety, anti-depression or depression medications. Maybe I should have been, to be honest. I probably should have been.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to, I wouldn't have done anything, but I did not want to be on this planet. Like I was like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And it like, even as I say that, I'm like, man, am I okay saying that? But it's just my truth.
And it's also very real. It's a very real thing.
I know.
It's a very real thing.
Yeah.
So the thing that comes to me that I want to ask you about is that week. We'll call that your rebirth.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened when you were in bed for that week?
Well, I know when my rebirth was.
When was your rebirth?
It wasn't that week. That was my death.
Oh, yeah.
So Heidi Powell
interesting
died. Like I actually was talking to a spiritual healer after Dave passed. Yeah. And I brought that up. I said, I actually, with every particle of my being in my soul, I was dying.
Yeah.
I said, I thought I was dying. And she said, Heidi, you were dying. And she said, a part of you died that day. And she said that 2 months after your depression, was you grieving the loss of the old you, and you were depressed.
Yeah.
I heard this quote recently by Jim Carrey that said something along, it basically reframed depression and said, depression is your body's and your soul's way of saying, I need deep rest. So instead of saying, when I'm depressed, no, I'm just in deep rest.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah. And so energetically, it was like Heidi Powell died that day. And I didn't choose it.
No.
God was like, I can't trust you anymore. I keep showing you the signs that you need to go a different direction and I can't trust you. So she's gone.
Yeah.
Deal with this, get sad, go cry, whatever. And right after the depression or the anxiety, my friend Alejandra sent me a book in August. She had a conversation with me and she said, I went through this and this is when I found God. And I was like, I really did. I was like, that's funny. Like I already have my own relationship with God. I don't need anyone telling me I need more or a different relationship. I've never known anything other.
Yeah.
And she sent me a book called Jesus Calling. It's daily devotionals. And it's sat literally collected dust right over there next to my toaster oven forever. And at the end of September, after 2 months of being so miserable and having to show up on lives and record videos and programs and courses and just like breaking down, like Dave was, I didn't know what I would have done without him. And there was that I clung to him and a relationship more during that time. It was like, what was I thinking about leaving? Like I need him, right? I suddenly needed him, I thought.
Yeah.
And because I didn't trust me. And I was sitting right there at that table and I was miserable staring out at my pool. And I was like, I'm going to grab that book. I don't know why. It wasn't even hey, I don't know. It was more like I've tried everything.
Yeah.
I had my habits I was doing every day. I was doing my routine. I was working out. I was opening up my blinds. I was looking at the sun in the morning for 5 minutes, right? All the things that they say to do.
Yeah.
Nothing worked.
Yeah.
I have nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
Why am I too prideful to see if God works? And so I was like, something's got to change if I want something to change.
Yeah.
And so I actually grabbed that book, opened up to that day and read it. And I wish I could remember exactly what the passage was, but it resonated with me so much. It talked about how we live in an unraveled and chaotic world. And if we don't turn to him, our energies will be scattered in the winds. And everything about that, my energies, I just started crying.
Yeah.
Because my energy and energies were all being scattered in the wind for as long as I can remember. That's all I was. I was like a pillow with feathers that was opened up and just, it was like all of my energy. None of it was for me. It was all for everybody else, right? Yeah. My energy was scattered to the wind in an attempt for them to tell me I was enough or to be whatever it was. And I lived. It says, we live in an unraveled and chaotic world. And if you don't cling to him, the energy unraveling or the energy scattered. And also you will become unraveled and chaotic. I was becoming unraveled and chaotic. Yeah. And it wasn't as noticeable to the outside world because we're like ducks. Like we paddle like hell underwater and we remain calm on the surface. But like hiding how I felt and how I was the worst thing I could have done because it was making me more miserable. But I was so scared of people seeing an unhealed, broken woman. Right? So reading that passage, the only way I can explain it was like there was a spark. That's all that it was. It was not this like, oh, God just came to me, but there was a spark. And that spark was so small. And the heat comes from light. Yeah. The heat that came from that spark was so minimal. But my world was so dark and so cold. Yeah. I felt the heat from that. Right? It did not take much. Yeah. And so it was the thing where I was like, okay, that's light. It was the first time I had felt light in so long. I didn't think I could ever feel light again. I think I'm going to try this tomorrow. Wow. And I was just crying. And so the next day I did the same and it was like, oh, there's a spark again. And it's a little bit bigger. Like I actually saw it for longer than a millisecond. Right. And then it was like every day just committing to that one thing for a while. It like became like a small flame. Yeah. And it just grew more and more. So that's my rebirth. And then that over time, that warmth, right? I was like a moth to a flame. And I was like, I don't even know if I believe what I'm reading. Yeah. Because I've had that's a different podcast. I've had an experience with religion. And I believe you don't have to be a religious person to be a good person and to have a connection with God. And you don't even have to believe in God. You can believe in what you want. And a good person's a good person. Yeah. Right. And so for me, but I was like, I don't even know if I believe what I'm reading, but what I do know is that felt good. And I want to keep coming back.
Okay. I want to just say two things that came to me when you were talking. Yeah. One, when you said God was like, Heidi, I don't trust you, so I'm going to take this away. What I heard was God was like, Heidi, I trust you so much that I'm going to move this stuff out of the way so you can really rise in your gifts.
Thank you. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And that's kind of what I don't want to tangent to too many directions, but I had a feeling like that last night when we were doing our breathwork class. Yeah. But yeah, the whole journey, and I will say this too, even when October came around and I started feeling more confident, right? In a connection with a higher power. Yeah. And I started praying and it just was like one thing after another. I was like, I don't know who I'm praying to. Yeah. I don't know if it's God. I don't know if it's my dad. I don't know if it's Mother Nature. I don't know if it's to myself. Like, what are we praying to? I have no idea. Yeah. But what it started to do was give me confidence to make some shifts. And it was a process because I would start to make shifts. Like that is actually about the time Dave and I finally broke up. Yeah. Which was super scary. And it was the time that I made the decision to cut off half of my businesses. Yeah. And it was super scary. So scary that I ended up going back. It was like this ping pong to both things, right? Yeah. It took me a couple months of back and forth before I was firm in my decision. Yeah. I had decided, going back to church doesn't have anything to do with it. But what for me is it kept me close to that flame, right? It kept me, I don't know what it is about it, but it had me feeling close to my power, had me feeling close to source or God, and helped me feel like I could do this. Yeah. and that I didn't need a business to define me.
Yeah.
I didn't need a community to tell me that I was changing their lives to make me feel worthy and enough. I didn't need a man who loved me very well.
Yeah.
I didn't need him. I didn't need his love to be loved and lovable because I felt like I did. I didn't need his words, even though they were so great and kind to me. I didn't need those words to believe those about myself.
Yeah.
So it was, what's interesting is in December, leading into, for about 2 months before Dave passed.
Yeah.
The me that he and I were friends, and he was a wonderful friend. We were great friends. But it was me crying every day. And what I would say is I know I'm bawling every call. I was on the phone with my financial guy. I was on the phone because I knew I was taking the biggest leap of my life. And after I had this date, after my communities ended in March, and I had to go through all these things in my mind, like, okay, if I do, I was living across the street in a 1,400 square foot home with 4 kids. We were piled in one room like puppies, and I had no money in the bank 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was happy as a clam.
Yeah.
So guess what? I can do that again. And I didn't have any businesses set up then.
Yeah.
Right. Chris and I had just divorced. I had nothing.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, worst case scenario, right? I will have everything.
Yeah.
Even if I have nothing. But there were tears, and it was tears because it was like, and I would tell Dave and my friends, I would say, I know I look like a wreck, but I'm in the best place I've ever been in because I'm going through the pain with purpose now. Like, it was like, I knew where I was going. And it was like, this is the workout that I needed to do to get from here to there.
It's the vision.
It was me.
It's the vision that you knew where you were going. So now you can leave the old ways.
Well, you know who was being reborn? Heidi Lane.
Heidi Lane.
I would say December on, it was like I was birthing, and it was the pain of labor. I was birthing Heidi Lane, who is the real me. And I was shedding, I was making the conscious choice to shed and it was so painful. It was like, okay, wait, I think I'm this person and this gives me value. Rip it off. And I just cry. I think I'm this and I need this. Rip it off. Okay, wait, I think I need this. Okay, what are all of the things I think that I need? Let me rip them off.
Yeah.
And it was just like cry. I mean, my attorney heard me cry. Everyone. I was crying all over the place. And it was, I would always say, this is the most beautiful my life has felt. And it doesn't make any sense. Right. And another thing I was shedding in that time was Heidi Powell. Right. And I haven't changed it everywhere. It's going to be a process. But the reality is, my name is not Heidi Powell. It never has been Heidi Powell. I kept it Heidi Lane when Chris and I got married because my 2 older kids who were from a previous marriage were sad when I was having cash because they were like, you guys we're going to be Solomons. You all are going to be Powells. And I, in that moment, said, no, you're going to be Solomons. Chris and the baby are going to be Powell, and I'm going to be Heidi Lane. So I made that choice for inclusion. Like, we are the most beautiful blended family.
Yeah.
And so I've always been Heidi Lane, but because of how I got brought into the public eye was through Chris, it became Heidi Powell. And in divorce, I remember Chris saying, are you going to shed your name?
Yeah.
Why don't you go to Heidi Lane? And I'm like, no. Why? Because what if I'm not enough if I'm Heidi Lane is what I thought. Like, what if people know the real me is just Heidi Lane? Like, they're not going to recognize me. They're not going to love me. Like, Heidi Powell had built some clout or some credibility, right?
Yeah.
And Heidi Lane wouldn't be enough is what I thought. And the reality is, as Heidi Lane, as I was shedding those layers of Heidi Powell, I realized that it does not matter. If the world doesn't think Heidi Lane is enough, because I am enough, period. Like, I am enough, period.
Yeah.
And I am Heidi Lane.
Yeah.
And I also don't care right now about being anything in the world. Like for once in my life, like I think all I really care about is healing me. And healing is going to be forever for all of us. Yeah. You know, I don't want that to be like you guys to be like, oh, no, we all have healing to do. I care about healing me first. And then using the gifts and the talents that I thought God gave me for the world, using those in my home. Because my kids are the most important kids or the most important humans next to myself. Yeah. My kids are the most important. So why would I not use my gifts and talents to first raise my kids? First teach me, then raise my kids. And like this podcast, I mean, if some of this spills over to you, I love it. But the reality is I'm doing this podcast for me. I told you this. Yeah. I might be the only person, but I'm doing this for me. Yeah. And I believe that by me being me, God will put this in the hands and the ears of whoever's meant to hear it.
And how can it not? Because vulnerability and truth unlocks other people's ability to be vulnerable and to sit with truth. And the more you stand in your light, it awakens everyone else's light.
Thank you.
Obviously it's going to go out and change millions of lives, but it's maybe it's not. And maybe it's not.
And that's okay.
This is like our text thread this week. You can do that or you don't have to. You can love this, you don't have to. Like it's the free fall. It's the free fall. And you're in the free fall and you're in the free fall powerfully.
Yeah. I actually am. Yeah. I think this is the first time in my life I can say I'm in it powerfully. And I do want to this all started with a question. How are you doing? Yeah. What's interesting is as of February 11th, there was two things I had not yet shed. And it was filters. We all know that, right? Which I have since shed. And, Dave and I still relied on each other. Yeah. Right. And it was like in this place to have him tell me I was enough and I was doing what was right, gave me the confidence. And then it was like, him passing. I'm not saying it was for me because it wasn't, but I think in life we can look at things that happen as things that happen to us or things that happen for us. Yeah. So I've tried to make the hardest thing I've ever been through, no exception to that rule. Yeah. And how can I look at this tragedy as something that's happening for all of us? And there's something beautiful that happens when someone passes. And this happened with my dad. Suddenly their words and their love and their belief are heard for how they meant it. But what's interesting is when they're alive, you hear it, but you don't really hear it. So you listen, but you don't really hear it. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, I know how much he believed in me and how much he loved me. Yeah. And I kind of wrote it off as, it's just because he loves me, he believes in me. And now I get to channel it in a way that is like no, he actually did. And why did he? Because he saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And that's usually a gift that I have for other people is I can see something in them that they can't see in themselves. Yeah. And so while his passing it really rocked my world. Yeah. It was such a beautiful reminder that the things that we think matter most usually don't matter at all. And the things that actually matter tend to be put on the back burner for someday. Yeah. And someday doesn't always come. Yeah. And I had some really beautiful experiences with Dave right before he passed. And I had some beautiful experiences with him after he passed. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for all of them. And I hate that he's not here. I hate that he's not here for me. I hate that he's not here for his kids and for his family. I hate that he's not here for everyone listening. Yeah. But I definitely feel held by him in a way that he couldn't have if he was here physically.
Yeah.
And I'm held by God now, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have that to lean back on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like now I actually am me. It is me and God.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. That's a hell of a year, Heidi.
Yeah. This is why I'm here. I should say this is how I landed here.
Yeah.
Isn't like the evolution of who we are and who we be? Isn't it just crazy to like?
It's beautiful. You know, it's interesting because just now when we left your bedroom, I saw this image of you as the Heidi that we were friends with. Like we were, like, you know,
back when I was 23.
Yeah, we were just little, you know, running bunco groups and trying to figure our lives out.
Running
as young
bunco
mothers.
Groups.
We'll tell that story maybe one day.
Yeah, the one fight we ever got in.
Because Heidi was 45 minutes late to my bunco group.
That's not surprising to anybody listening, because if we all know there's time, and then there's Heidi time.
Yeah. And that was the only time I've ever gotten mad at you for being late to my bunco group.
I know,
but it's fine. I forgive you. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
But I saw this picture of you upstairs,
and
I was like, "Oh, Heidi, I remember that version of you." And then what hit me was that version. That version of Heidi was like not in her body. She was kind of up here. And this version of Heidi is like, whew, like landed in her body.
Yeah.
And I just looked at you and I was like, wow, we've really come a long way.
Gosh.
And like you saying that you have come home to Heidi Lane, it's like, that's a visceral, like, in the body. It's so beautiful, Heidi.
Thank you. Thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
I love, it's peaceful.
Yeah.
Here. I think that's the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much peace. And I know one of the things that I've gotten a comment on, I don't bring this up to be like, oh, I'm glowing. No, but like I did a Q&A, and I will say one of the things I get a lot is this new you,
Mm-hmm.
is, and by new too, I made a commitment to myself, no more filters. That's another whole conversation for another day, but you will not. And there are people that are like, you're still using them. I have not used a freaking filter since I came back to social after Dave's death. Sometimes there's great lighting, but
you gotta love great lighting.
Yeah. But and I'll show, I have rings under my eyes. I have circles under my eyes. Sometimes whatever it is, I show who I am, and I don't think about it anymore because I'm not here. I'm here. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the comment, or a handful of comments, are like, this is the most, I don't want to call myself beautiful, but it's the most glowy or beautiful version of you. So we all have more beautiful versions. And at first I was like, are they just saying that to say that?
Yeah.
Because filters always make everything look more beautiful, we think, right? But the reality is, what I think we are seeing as beautiful is truth. Because truth is beautiful.
Yeah.
And authenticity is beautiful. And for me, I feel beautiful, and it has nothing at all to do with my face or my body. None. And I feel so beautiful on my inside because I am no longer hiding anything. Like I'm not hiding my face with a filter. I'm not hiding my insecurities with business. I'm not hiding. I am me.
Yeah.
And you can take it or leave it. Anyone can take it or leave it, right?
Yeah.
But I take me. And I
think this is for an episode. We'll leave that for later.
Yes,
I love
do.
that.
Yeah. And I think that's just I know when I think of the women who I am drawn to, humans, I'm not even going to say women, but the people who I'm most drawn to. And sometimes you're like, wait, but why am I even drawn to them? Why are they so beautiful? And you are one of these people. You need to know this. You are just magnetic. And the reason why you are magnetic to me and to so many people is because you show up in your truth every day. And I think if more people trusted that their truth their realness, their raw, their authenticity, their skeletons even, right?
Yeah.
Like if we can just peel back the layers and let them come out, let them see light, it's like that wound deep down that is like becoming more and more infected over time because we're hiding it.
Yeah.
The wound would be able to be cleaned out and to breathe and to heal.
Yeah.
And also the beauty that would kind of grow from that new soil.
Yeah.
It's a thing we don't even know until we try.
So here's what I'm hearing is that when you had filters on, it's beautiful to the eyes, right? Like I told you, I've done one filter and I was like, oh, hell no. Yeah. If I ever see myself in a filter again, I will like never want to see myself I was so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you were like Kim Kardashian. You're like,
who is that? Damn, she's beautiful. Then I was like, oh, let's go back to real. It's fine. But like, here's what I saw was that imagine a plate on your table and it's filled with just the most gorgeous fruit. And you're like, oh, it's so gorgeous. And you go and you bite it and it's the rubber.
Oh yeah.
Or it's the platter and it's all real fruit.
That might not be as pretty
and
to the eye.
Yes. But it's like, oh, right. And so what you were saying, what I'm hearing is that when people saw a filter, it was like, oh, yes. But there was an energy that couldn't connect them to you. And now that you're just like all Heidi Lane.
Yeah.
It's like, fruit.
Yeah.
And it's like
there's sustenance. It's the difference between a binky and a bottle with milk in it.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I have a bottle with milk in it.
You are. Now
lots of colostrum.
Now it's nourishing you.
And strengthening our body and do a stick of the weenie.
It's like nourishing.
It is.
The glow is that what you're giving is like, it's nourishing people.
Thank you.
And that's why I'm so pumped for this. Can we edit that out?
Me too. Nope. No, we can't.
Let's see if I can come up with a better sentence. I want to honor you.
You're jazzed.
So jazzed about this. No, I want to let me get into the channel, Keira.
Yeah.
I just want to honor you though, because to release Heidi Pal, that took a hell of a lot of strength.
Yeah.
A lot of courage and a lot of faith.
Yeah.
And now it's like a deep breath of fresh air.
It is.
Yeah. And I am pumped for you.
Oh my gosh. How long did we go? How long was that? 20 minutes?
Wait, we're not done yet. We're not.
Hour 17.
Hey, okay. So, all right, this is what we're going to do.
Okay.
I want you to drop in your heart.
Okay.
I want you to listen to like, what's the message from today's episode that you want to leave everyone with? We're going to sprinkle Heidi Lane's golden dust into everybody's ears who are listening.
You know, I think it's so simple and we said it, but I think the clearest, most powerful message today to everybody listening, and I'm speaking to myself too. Let me just say it for me.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
My most beautiful version of me is the truest, most authentic version of me. And now I'm going to take that and give it to the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your most beautiful version of you is your truth. It's your authentic self. It's actually the parts of you that you think nobody would love you if they saw. I think if we all, little by little, right, can start to play around with a thing called vulnerability, which is opening ourselves up. Yes, when we are vulnerable, by definition, we open ourselves up for attack, right? We open ourselves up to get hurt. But also, it is the only way to receive and to give love the way that we deserve. And I realized that I've never given anyone in my life the real ability to love all of me, as long as filters of any kind or roles that tell me that I'm valuable, as long as those exist, right? And same with you, same with whoever's listening. We don't even know if anyone can or can't love who we really are, because we've never given anyone the opportunity to. And the freedom that comes from being vulnerable, the freedom that comes from opening up and showing all of who you are, suddenly transcends the idea of anyone loving you back, because suddenly you love who you are and you realize that's all that matters. And God, right? So you and God. I think it's self-acceptance. That's a big thing.
Goes back to that beautiful quote you wrote. Should we finish on that again?
We should finish with that.
Let's read it. Do you want to read it?
Let's read it.
Let's have you read it. Can you read my handwriting?
Yep. All right. So quote from my Insta. It is self-acceptance. I was talking about self-acceptance. I don't remember what was right before it, but it's accepting all of the dark and the light, the good and the bad, making peace with it, and finally allowing others to see and love all of us for who we truly are.
There you go.
So that's my wish, my hope for anyone listening right now. Thanks for having this conversation with me.
It's always a good time.
Yeah. And to everybody listening, thanks for being here with us. I hope you felt what you needed to feel in this. I hope you saw parts of you in either mine or Keira's story. But I hope you felt seen, loved, heard enough, and beautiful exactly as you are. I love you guys.